Are you struggling with roadblocks as a woman in the challenging and constantly changing world of corporate America? If you feel stuck in your career, you may be holding yourself back and may not even realize it. Prepare to be enlightened by the meaningful discussions here at the No Woman Left Behind podcast. Each week, gather the insight you need to break down those walls of limiting beliefs. Unleash your full potential and unlock the leader within. Listen to raw conversations with corporate women as they share inspiring stories with the purpose of obtaining their dream career and living a truly fulfilling life. Here's your host, Rosie Zelinskas.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today's conversation is going to be around women and money management. Many women still don't feel comfortable managing their money, especially if they have had some kind of divorce or maybe a death of a partner. I invited Patti Handy to come and talk to us about what are some common mistakes that women make today when it comes to money management. Patti Handy, after 20 years of being a financial advisor and mortgage advisor and having countless conversations with women, she decided to pursue her dream of financial coaching for women. She's a teacher at heart, and she loves to educate and empower women with money smarts. Understanding that money can be an overwhelming topic for many, she is passionate about creating financial confidence when it comes to your well-being. This has been the catalyst to follow her passion of empowering and educating women in their financial journey. She is a certified executive coach, certified life coach, and holds a real estate broker's license and published author of 4 books. Stay tuned for my conversation with Patti on all things money. Do you feel that you're spinning your wheels and advancing your career slower than you'd like? Well, I got you, because I have a free quiz to help you figure out how you may sabotage your career advancement. Our free quiz is designed to help you identify the common pitfalls preventing you from reaching your career goals. The quiz is 100% free, and it only takes 3 minutes to complete. Take the quiz now to start taking control of your career today. The link is on the episode website. And now let's head back to today's conversation. Thank you so much for being here on the No Woman Left Behind podcast. So I know that you're a financial coach, and one of the things that I want to talk about right away are, what are the common struggles that you see women have with money?
Yeah, thank you, Rosie. I am so happy to be here. I appreciate you having me on. It's a pleasure. Some of the common themes that I see with women are just the overwhelm, the insecurities, the lack of financial confidence. Typically, they didn't learn about money in school, and typically we didn't learn about it at home. And oftentimes in a marriage, the husband took care of the funds. I mean, certainly that's not everybody. That's just an overwhelming kind of majority. And so when a divorce or a loss of a spouse happens, they're overwhelmed with, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know where to start. And so it's just the fear. And then kind of fast forward, it's the fear of running out of money. I don't want to be a burden to my kids. I don't want to live on my kid's couch. I don't want to, I'm just embarrassed by this. There's a lot of shame and embarrassment, which is just, I want to eliminate that and just take that out of the vocabulary.
Now, the podcast primarily focuses for women in the corporate world advancing in their, corporate careers. And obviously, we want them to be financially savvy and, deal with all the things that we just talked about. I want to shift the conversation just a little bit to those young women that are coming into the workforce, whatever job they have, because I've heard so much that young women or people, both young men and women, but are really struggling and to be able to just make ends meet, and more than anything to buy their own home or even like get their own apartment, and they're finding themselves staying home and moving out until they're like 25, 26, 27, where in the past you'd be able to kind of graduate from college typically and get an apartment. So have you had conversations with young women about the struggles that they're having today to just become independent?
It certainly is. Yeah, there's many factors involved there. One is, the expense of college has become much higher than it was in our years. And so coming out of college with all this, school debt, potentially credit card debt, and oftentimes you start a role and you're not, earning a lot of money. So you're negative. And really, it's a conversation of getting a good handle on where you are today in terms of money. Now, we don't like the term budget. I don't really use the term budget so much, but it is important to understand what's happening with your money. Where's the spending happening? Where's there's holes? Where's the gaps? And even those that have taken a really close look at those gaps and look at those, potential holes in the boat, so to speak, it's about just creating a plan to put in place that will slowly get you out of whatever debt you're in, if any. Look for ways to potentially do a side hustle for a little while just to get yourself back on track. So there's definitely ways, and I think a lot of times we come out of college, or even young 30, 40-year-olds who are just trying to stay above water, and they're in this thrive mode. So they're not in, I'm sorry, they're in a survive mode, not in the thrive mode. I said that backwards. So when you're in that survive mode, you don't look at opportunities, you look at, possibilities. So it's really about being open to the possibilities of what's around us. And there's so many these days with, the internet and what you can do. But a lot of it too is mindset. Let's just try to get yourself in a good positive place and not fearful about what's happening to you today.
Exactly. Now, you said you don't like the word budget. What word do you have instead of a budget? Because I come from you have to have a budget, and all that stuff. So
yeah.
What word do you replace with budget?
Spending plan.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just another way. I think the word budget, much like the word diet, is very restrictive sounding, and it sounds like you can't do anything. And I don't want to give people the impression that they have to watch every penny every day for their life. If you had told me I need to weigh my food, every time I eat something, I would tell you to, well, I would say no.
Yeah.
I would not do that. That's not sustainable, right? We can't do that forever. But I am watching and mindful of what I put in my mouth. I'm mindful and watchful of how I work out. I do things to keep a healthy lifestyle because health is important to me. Same with money. So if you're watching what you're spending, if you're looking at what's coming in, looking at what's going out, and you're mindful of those things, and when you're given a choice of, gosh, is this a need or a want? Do I really need this, situation? How important it is, is it for me right now to have this instant gratification versus the delayed gratification later, which is financial freedom and choices and all the things that you want later in life. Then those purchases start to be more, they're just more cautious, if you will. So right. I do think we have to be mindful of how we spend, for sure.
Yeah, and I know for the younger generation, like the Gen Z generation, they're more into, they don't want to work nearly as hard as their parents did. They want to enjoy life more. But I don't know what their mindset is about instant gratification. I know that they want to travel, and technology is really, and actually I read an article that travel, technology, and shoes, gym shoes, are very important to this generation. And they're obviously our future generation. So what recommendations do you generally have for women, whether they're starting their careers or whether they're mid-level, as far as investing is concerned? Because I think as a society, we're always educating our young boys to make sure that they're good in math and, all those stereotypes. But so when it comes to investing, what are some of the things that you recommend as a financial coach to your clients?
Sure. So I came from being a financial advisor and a mortgage advisor. So I've been in the world of money for many, many years, and I have had so many conversations. And my first and foremost recommendation would be to do what you can to find people that you trust. I would stay off all the noise online. There's a lot of information overload online, and some is accurate, and I've seen some that isn't accurate. So just find a particular person that you know to be, accurate, and follow their information, learn. There's books, there's countless books. It wouldn't be a bad idea to talk to a financial coach. Just have them, teach you and educate you on areas that are specific to you with regards to, where you want to be. I absolutely positively feel that women should get comfortable with investing. I heard an interview some time ago from a gentleman on a podcast, and he said that men look at investing as a challenge and women look at investing as a threat.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that was very of like, I heard that, I'm like, oh my heavens, that's got to change. So, and really the mechanics of investing, there's very little math in it, honestly. If you can add and subtract and divide and multiply, you've got investing down, right? But I would definitely say take the stigma away from, oh gosh, investing is just, scary and it's dangerous and the market's going to tank and all that stuff. But if you look at the history of the market and if you look at where you are in terms of when you need the funds, and if you're planning on buying a home in the next 3 to 5 years, that money should not be sitting in the market. Okay, that should be in a safer investment, whether it's a bond fund or a money market account or something that's earning you some money, but not in the market. So if you're looking at retirement money and you've got a timeline of 7 to 10 years or longer, that should be in the market. That should be going into things that will work for you. The market works for you. And yes, it's volatile. You will see it go down. You will see it go up. But if you look at history and you look at the charts over, since the inception of the market, it has over time, gone up. So do your due diligence, do your homework, read the books, reach out to people that you trust. If you've got somebody in your circle that is a financial advisor, a CPA, an attorney, oftentimes attorneys, they're not necessarily investment experts, but, just reach out to those people in your circle that you trust. And we women are very intuitive and very smart. And if it feels off, it's probably off. And if it feels good, just dig deeper and learn about it.
Got it. And yeah, so investing is like a long-term situation. So I like that you said if
Absolutely.
it's something that you're not going to do in the next like 7 to 10 years, then it should be in the market because that timeline is, as you said, going to continue to go up. And I think the biggest thing is you can't look at your investments. I had many years ago, there was an individual that looked at their investments every single day and they would freak out, because it would go up and down. I'm like, well, that's what it does. That you can't,
Right.
put your emotions into your daily. Now, if you look at it like on a 6-month or 12-month basis, you can see the trends going up. That makes a little bit more sense to me. So
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much behavioral side to the investing in the market. You really have to keep that emotion out, knowing it's hard to see your money go down. It's hard to see that, especially this last year, it was a tough year to
yeah,
see, your portfolio. And those that like panicked and jumped out, that's like the worst thing you can do. The market's on sale right now. If anything, you should maybe look at possibly, if you've got some extra cash in the sidelines, look at maybe putting that to work if you don't need that for a long time. So
absolutely. Now, you talked a little bit about behavior. So I know mindset is a big piece of money and success. And actually, people say, what do they say? So, like, 80% just kind of is like automatic, and it's like 20% of your actions that actually make a difference. So, can you talk a little bit about how you teach your clients about money mindset and what are like some of the maybe 2 or 3 things that you talk about when it comes to mindset and money?
yeah, that's a great question. I actually have an entire module on the mindset. It's so important. And I'll pivot for 1 second. You look at some of these lotto winners, right? Or athletes or actors. I mean, I'm thinking of, industries where they make big, multi-millions, and then yet you see that they have gone through those funds, or the lotto winners who are, back to where they were a year later. And a lot of that is around their money mindset and what they believe to be true. So I use the analogy of an iceberg. So above the water, you see a very small portion of the iceberg, right? But below the water is the massive piece of ice that you can't see. So that
Mhm.
massive piece of ice is really your subconscious mind, and the top part of above the water is your conscious mind. So 95% of our external reality comes from our subconscious. We've been reprogrammed, or I should say programmed, as young, from 0 to about 8. We just absorbed everything. We just heard things from mom and dad, aunts, uncles, grandparents, teachers, coaches, whatever, and we had these stories. We didn't have the ability to filter out a particular fact. So if mom said, honey, money doesn't grow on trees, we need to just save, we couldn't say, money doesn't grow on trees, what are you talking about? With like, there was no filter. We took it as fact.
Right.
So, some of us boomers, our parents were born in the Great Depression. So we have this, lack mentality, this scarcity, this fear. So whatever you heard as a child. So what we do, in the program, and also I recommend to your audience, is to take some time, reflect, and write down on paper what it is that you heard growing up. What are some of your money stories? What are your beliefs around money? Is it scarcity? Is it abundance? Is it money doesn't grow on trees? Is it you have to work your butt off to be able to make anything? Rich people are greedy. I mean, what did you hear? These are the common things that, we hear. And then we turn around and we debunk it. We basically say, is that true? Is that really? I mean, you look at the abundance in the world, money's everywhere. And we talk about the energy of money. And we also, which is really important to me is, why is it important to have wealth? Is it because you want to just buy a fancier car and a bigger house to prove to the world that you've got money? Or is it to have choices and freedom and be able to give back and make a bigger impact in those people that you love or other people? And your why has to be super important to you. So there's many pieces, and changing that subconscious mind and that programming in our brain does not happen overnight. It takes time. There's a lot of processes that have to go through to be able to, unwind that. But it starts with being mindful and acknowledging that what you heard was baloney.
Oh gosh. So my parents are very opposite when it comes to money. So my dad is more of like a spender and my mom is more of the saver. And so we always got these thoughts of like, oh no, we have enough money, we can spend it. I'm like, oh no, we don't have enough money. So it was like very confusing growing up. But my mom was definitely the one that handled the budget and the money. And she would be like, no, we don't have money for that. No, we don't have money for that. So that's the kind of thoughts and ideas that I grew up as, and I was one of 5 too. So back then my dad was the only one that was working. My mom was home. So she was really good with her money, but it was always like, no, we don't have enough. No, we don't have enough. And I remember my parents both came from very humble beginnings. And so there was one time that my mom had cut like the napkins in half because we just ran out. And I vividly remember thinking, I am never going to cut napkins when I'm an adult. And when I started working, I made sure that it was just me working and I had a good job. And I always made sure that I filled my tank of gas all the way full because I remember her like, nope, let's just do $5 of gas. Now, granted, all this, she was doing the very best that she could with the means that she, but it's almost like you do become, I mean, the word traumatized is like, not the right word, but you do have these ideas that it's just like, oh my gosh, this is not the way I want to be when I grow up. It's so interesting how your upbringing impacts so much of what you do or what you don't do when you're an adult.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh, the stories I can tell you, my heavens. Yeah, it's very similar. I mean, I'm one of 5 too, so I have that similar thing. My mom was the at home, take care of the money. And, some of the language, I'll share this versus saying we don't have the money for that. If we were to say that isn't a good use of our money, that means now we are now in control of it. We're just choosing not to do something. It may be that we don't have those funds, but I mean, we have the funds, but it's not the best use of our money. It's better to put food in your mouth than it is for us to go buy this, whatever. So it's just some of those things that you just change the words. So if you're bringing up kids, if you're a young mom and you just watch that language that you use with your kids, because that gives them the indication that, you have the control of the money. They don't have, that doesn't control you. And that's really important to turn that. But I remember, going to restaurants with my siblings, and it was, 7 of us, 5 kids and mom and dad, and, we couldn't buy soda.
Yeah.
Because it was, whatever it was, expensive. Like, we have soda at home. I'm like, I know, but we're here at the restaurant.
Right.
It's like, okay, no, you order water. And no fault of them at all. I mean, it's just,
Sure.
it went, it's expensive raising 5 kids. But yeah, funny stories.
Now, I really like the way you position it because you're absolutely right. Like language is everything, right? So if you are constantly saying, no, we don't have money for that, and you shift it to that is not the best use of our money, it changes the entire landscape of the conversation because then you're absolutely right. You are now in control of your choices and your decisions, and much, much better than no, we don't have money for that.
Right.
I love that. Now, you talked a little bit about a component of one of the programs that you run. You talked about energy. So can you expand a little bit more on the energy piece when it comes to money?
That's all within the money mindset and the money story component module. And it dives deep into the energy that we have with money. And it's if we are fearful of losing it and we're hoarding it and we're, it's mastering us versus we're being the master of the money. and the energy that we give it. If it's something that we can't let it go because it'll never come back, that's a very unhealthy energy. If we let the money flow, knowing money's everywhere, money's abundant, it's there for the taking. And if it's hard to get your head around that if you've been raised in a scarcity and lack household, but it is absolutely doable. I mean, I've seen people who have raised and experienced poverty growing up and turned their life around. So, but all that is the whole money mindset piece, and that's we talk about our internal thermostat and how we have this comfort level, and when once we hit it, then we do things subconsciously to bring it back down, and it's very interesting. It's a fascinating piece, but that understanding our subconscious, understanding the why we do what we do with money and the relationship. I mean, that is really the foundation, because again, I can teach you simply the mechanics of money. I can teach you how to get your credit score up. I can teach you how to invest in a particular fund and what to look for in terms of, the expense ratio, or look at what, this index fund versus that index fund. I mean, all that stuff. I can show you how to buy a house on your own. All of that's just simple. And once you know it, you know it. But if you have that mindset that's still murky, and you haven't worked through that, you're going to fall back into the same old habits.
Got it. Yeah, no, I love all that. Okay, so what are some of the things that you see women, and of course now let's talk a little bit about the woman that's more established. And I think we both had a divorce. So when you are in, right now, like 55% of people are getting divorced. So when when we shift a little bit about, a woman that's in the middle of her career, she probably may have children, or even if she doesn't, and she gets divorced. Obviously, I know I had to start all over again from ground zero and like rebuild. That doesn't necessarily happen to everybody, but what are some things that you recommend if you're in a divorce situation that you need to start focusing on for that woman that just maybe is going through a divorce or a breakup of some sort?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if it's very early on or you're in the midst of it, I would definitely focus on your mental, emotional healing first. You can't make a good financial decision when there's so much upheaval in your life personally and you're emotionally distraught and you're just trying to comprehend and process all of the divorce, especially if you've got kids and you're now trying to manage the household and make sure they're okay. So don't do anything big financially. If someone tries to talk you into buying a particular product, do something, invest in something right out of the gate. Just be careful about that. Make sure that you just take some time to step back, take care of yourself, fill your cup again, and kind of get, grounded again. I know with my divorce, things were a mess for months, and I had an 18-month-old at the time, and my focus was him. And yes, divorce can be expensive. You lose half your assets, all kinds of upheaval. So it is a mess. Once you become righted up, so to speak, and you're back on track, then take your time in looking at, if you can. I mean, if there are some decisions you have to make financially, you've got to make those. But if you can, you're looking at your assets, you go, okay, how should I invest this? What percentage should be in the market versus fixed income versus cash? How much do I need for maintaining my house? What's my budget look like, or my spending look like? Just, get a roadmap in place. That's a lot of what we cover too, is like, where are you today? Let's just get a good handle on where you are today from the beginning, and then where you want to go. And we fill in those gaps or those holes, to get you from A to B. But don't be in a rush to try to figure it all out just because you want to get it figured out. Make sure you do your due diligence, do your homework. Again, talk to someone that you trust. And I always share this with people. If you cannot, if someone's trying to sell you a product or a service or something, and you can't turn around and tell a fourth grader about this particular product, then you shouldn't be buying it, because you don't understand it fully, right? If you don't understand it completely with all of its nuances and all of its expenses and all of the hidden costs and whatever else, you shouldn't be investing in it unless you 100% understand what it is. Because there's a lot of products out there that are great, but they're very confusing, and there's so many moving parts. And recommendation is just make sure you know what you're getting yourself into.
Got it. I like your initial recommendation that you kind of need to deal with the emotional part first, and you shouldn't be making decisions. I had a 4-year-long divorce because it's just obviously a long story, but I found myself kind of in a holding pattern. because I couldn't make any financial decisions. I couldn't buy anything until that whole process finished. And by the way, during that time, during the divorce time, my career kind of came at a, again, standstill where I just couldn't really focus on it 100%. Once I got divorced and once I had all of the financials in order, I was able to buy a house. And then I was able to reshift my thinking to my career, because you can't think about it all. You can't, put your career first and go through a divorce and not know where you're going to be living next year. So there is so much that you have to contend with. But I totally agree with you that you have to, if you're going through a divorce, you kind of have to take care of yourself and your children first, take care of your mental health. Once all that's kind of settled, then that's the time for you to start focusing on making financial decisions and continue to look at your career from that point. But obviously there's a lot of fear during that whole process, right?
Right. And the sadness and the grief, you're just not 100% with that, going through that grief. You aren't. Our mind, I'll speak for myself, there's like a big cloud. I was driving in a fog, it's just, you just can't think straight. And if you're looking at someone who lost a spouse, you don't have the divorce issue, so the financial issue isn't as bad, because obviously there's no split of assets, but you're still going through this horrible grief and trauma and trying to figure out, your next steps now that you're by yourself and all that. So that same philosophy and thought would be in that case, just get yourself right and get yourself well before you make any big decisions.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Now we're shifting a little bit just to, I know you had talked about a lot of online tools. How do you suggest we filter through all of the online tools and the online noise so that we could figure out what are some good tools that we can use for, what did you call instead of a budget?
Spending plan?
Spending plan. Yes.
Yeah, you're right. There are so many apps, so many online tools. They all have pros and cons, and depending upon what you like, you just kind of have to choose. I know there are some people that just love the good old fashioned Excel spreadsheet and don't want to, online app. They want to just see it on paper. I've heard great things about mint.com. There's some other ones, Simply. I'm having a little brain short right now, but there are many. And my recommendation overall to kind of filter through that is to speak to friends or family who are using these and say, what is your experience? Tell me what you like and don't like about it. There are some people who just don't like the online app because they don't feel like it's safe. It's not it's not secure, so they don't want to be involved with that. So again, I always say to talk to people who you trust and see what they're using, what it is that they like. Because if you were to Google online, budget apps, you have, oodles and oodles, and it's like,
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, how do I even know where to? And every website, proposes how wonderful their thing is, and I'm sure that's the case. But and again, if you like an Excel spreadsheet, that's great too.
And I think your spending plan is going to be very much like if you are on a diet and you have to record all of your, food or whatever. If you don't use it, any diet, any eating plan works as long as you use it. Same thing with any, financial online plan, or like you said, a spreadsheet. Any plan works as long as any plan works as long as it is used. Sorry, I'm having tongue back too.
That's okay. Yeah, it definitely has to be implemented. And I think that's why people like Mint, because it's tied to your bank accounts. So it automatically, like it's happening with your debit cards and whatnot, it's automatically linking. So you've got it that sort of built in for you. I personally don't use Mint myself. I couldn't tell you how it, intimately works. Quite honestly, I'm one of those that likes the paper. So I use my Excel spreadsheet, and then once I kind of have a handle on things, I don't track it every month. I don't document everything that I spend every single month. I just aware from where I come from, what I'm doing, and it's fine.
Sure. So, Patti, how did you go from being a financial planner to now a financial coach? I want to know a little bit about your story and how you ended up being a coach, and you're a former financial advisor now.
Sure. So it really was, the seed was planted when I went through my divorce, which is now going on 20 something years. And I remember at the time of my divorce, again, my son was very young, and I remember laying on the floor in the fetal position, just sobbing like a week or two after the divorce, just going, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Just the overwhelm of everything. I was just distraught. And in a very strange, weird download I got, it was, it was very random. I wasn't thinking about money. I wasn't, thinking about the financial piece of it. But this random thought came into my head that you're going to be okay. You know how to manage the money. You were the one that took care of it all. It's going to be okay. And I thought, well, that was strange, but okay. I just sort of went on with my sobbing. And after I came out of the fog, I remember thinking to myself, I want to someday take this pain of what I went through and somehow turn it around and help women. And over the next 20 something years, I would have conversations with ladies. I was in the mortgage business for 17 years. And as in that role, you're getting deep and dirty with everyone's money and you're helping them with, getting qualified, and lots of conversations around money, lots of coaching in that role. And then I found that to be very transactional, but I wanted a deeper relationship, more longer term, which is why I went to become a financial advisor. And I really enjoyed that role. That was something that I did get deep with clients. I became friends with lots of clients. There was a relationship, but I continued to have these same conversations come through the door of women who were just distraught. They were scared, overwhelmed, fearful, and a lot of times they couldn't hire an advisor because they didn't have the minimum portfolio size. A lot of advisors have minimum portfolios. So I had to send them away. It was like heartbreaking. I felt like this is just not right. So that's when I decided to finally just pivot and do the coaching. So I don't do any financial advising. I don't manage any assets anymore. It's purely coaching. So we talk about the whole behavioral side. And quite frankly, a lot of what I do, advisors don't do. So I'm a complementary service to a financial advisor. In fact, I'm in talks with some advisors right now where we're going to just do things together, because what I do, they don't do, and vice versa. So it's kind of a best of all worlds. But the journey really came from that seed planted many, many years ago. And then it just got reinforced with hearing these stories over and over again. And, at the end of the day, I look back and I thought, the fear of regret of not doing this was greater than the fear of losing a, comfortable salary and benefits to going out on my own and, taking that leap of faith. So it was a big jump.
That's great. And again, it's amazing how our stories create what, we want to do in the future, right? So
Yeah.
in that fetal position, thinking, having, like you said, that download, what an amazing moment for you to have that thought. And then years later, now you've actually become a financial coach where you're helping women in that same situation. And I have heard that women that don't have a relationship with their financial advisor, if something happens to their husband, they go and find their own financial advisor. So one of my family members is a financial advisor, and they make sure to meet with both the husband and the wife so that they can have that relationship, because the one thing as a female, you don't want to be out of the loop on your finances. You want to make sure that you're aware of what's happening. And I think a lot of women rely on the partner to take care of things, and then when things go south, then they're left holding the bag and they have no idea what is happening. And so I've always said, you have to be informed about what's happening with your finances, whether you manage it or not. Just stay informed, because it's no good if you're again left without any information, and then you're going through this terrible divorce. Or I should say, generally, divorces are not very amicable.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So
that, and if you lost your spouse, suddenly, which I've seen as well. I had a client when I was in the mortgage business. Her husband passed unexpectedly, and she didn't know where anything was. She had no idea where her statements were. She didn't know where her assets were. She didn't know how much they had. She didn't know any of it. She just trusted her husband, which is great. You trust your spouse to take care of the money. And so it was just an unfolding of, oh my gosh, where do I? And fortunately for her, her attorney uncovered an account with I think it was $600,000 in it that she didn't even know she had. So lucky for her versus a credit card pile that she didn't realize, right? So I always encourage couples to have what I call money dates, and on a quarterly basis go to dinner or go have some wine or whatever it is that you guys enjoy, and don't make a big thing out of it. Just spend 30 minutes or so talking about where things are at. Are you on track? Well, how are your assets? What's going on? Are you attacking debt? Do you have any debt? Whatever it is that you have to talk about. And then just make sure that you have everything in one location, so that spouse, whoever it is, husband or wife, who, whatever happens, they all know where everything is and there's no surprises.
Got it. All right. Sounds good. Now, are there any, when you're just coaching people in general, are there any money pitfalls that you have identified that people generally fall into? Do you have anything like that you've identified?
The biggest pitfall that comes to mind is that there's a lot of emotional spending with life, especially now. Things are, there's a lot happening in the world. There's a lot of carrying a lot of weight of just sadness, and there's a lot of things that are kind of making us just feel sad and just not really in a great place. And a lot of people do emotional spending. I call it retail therapy. I'm sure you've heard that term before.
Yeah.
And it's just, oh, this is pretty. I'll just get this. And then suddenly their credit card bill comes and it's like, oh my gosh, how did all that happen? And even, the eating out, the fast food, the coffees. And again, it's not about constricting life, and sure, you can go have your latte, I don't care, go have your, you work hard, go have a latte. But if it's a constant thing and you're in credit card debt and you're trying to get out from under it, again, it's like, okay, is that really the best use of my money? Is it better for me to focus on getting this credit card paid down than buying this $200 pair of jeans? It's like that kind of, awareness. So that's probably a pitfall that I'm seeing, just being mindful, really aware of what you're spending and why you're spending it. Is it coming from a place of sadness? Is it coming from a place of an emotional trauma? It's a short-term fix. If that's the case, it's a short-term fix. And then you just, you want something else. And so again, take some time to reflect on why that's happening. That's probably the biggest thing that I see, especially with these days where there's just a lot of poop in the air.
And that makes sense. The emotional spending makes total sense with everything that is happening in the world, because if you just want to feel good, it's like, that study of the many years ago of the kids with the marshmallows, where they would say, the researcher would be like, you can have one marshmallow now. And they film all the kids and they're like, one of them smells the marshmallow. Some of them eat the marshmallow because they can't wait. And then if they don't eat the marshmallow, then they can have two marshmallows 15 minutes from there. But they were like first graders. So 15 minutes in a first grader is like 15 years.
Yeah. That's that delayed versus, instant gratification. And it's easier said than done. There's no question.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Patti, well, you've given us a ton of information, but are there maybe 2 actionable tips that you can share with us that could help women in the corporate world to continue to advance in their careers when it comes to taking care of their money?
I would say, first off, give yourself grace if you don't feel confident in your money and you are feeling embarrassed, you don't want to talk about it. Give yourself some grace. Even with my financial background that I had going into the marriage, because I was the one that managed the money, I was the one that took care of all that. I still made some decisions that were not the greatest after my divorce. I was going through emotional stuff, obviously, and I didn't do always the best thing. And so again, give yourself grace and just understand that you're learning, you're on a journey, and it's okay. And we all make mistakes and we just learn and we move forward. Some of our biggest challenges and our biggest heartaches create the greatest lessons for us and the greatest opportunity for us to move forward. So just have that in your mindset. And then again, what I mentioned earlier, and that is just to do your due diligence, do your homework, reach out to somebody. Feel free to reach out to me. We can have a conversation, and I offer a 30-minute discovery call that's complimentary. And so just find someone that you like and trust and have that conversation, do your homework, and just be mindful that the internet is full of, a lot of stuff, and just be careful when you're running around online.
That's wonderful. So those are 2 great tips. Now, you said that someone can have a consultation with you. What do you do typically in the consultation? Is it just something that you have standard, or is it on a case-by-case basis for the individual?
So our 30-minute discovery meeting is typically, I'll ask lots of questions, good understanding of what is going on in their world, what their pain point is, what made them reach out, what they're hoping to achieve in life. And we certainly can't cover everything in 30 minutes, but I can give them some guidelines as to, some direction and ways, depending upon what their situation is. And then we can decide if potentially my program makes sense for them. If it doesn't, I'll tell them. And if it does, wonderful, I'll share the program with them. But it really is about trying to help them just make one more step towards getting back on track.
That's awesome. And of course, like everything that we do is we're trying to get to that financial freedom. And that's one of the things that you said before, is just to be not a power hungry individual, but just to be able to have time freedom, money freedom, that if you do want to splurge on one thing, you're to be like, yeah, I can actually, choose to spend my money on that. We just want to be comfortable. We just want to be, happy and content and not in all this massive debt, which is why we're having this conversation today. So
Right. It's all about peace of mind. It's about sleeping at night, knowing that you're not going to run out of money, knowing that your kids are going to be okay, can do everything that you want, and you take baby steps. steps and celebrate those baby steps. But yeah, it's really, again, money gives you choices. It gives you freedom. It isn't about buying crap to impress the neighbors that you don't know and you don't care about anyways. So
yeah, that is the perfect ending there, right? So, all right, Patti. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be here and talk to us all about money. And I appreciate you very much. One of the things that is so critically important for us to really keep in mind is that the way you think about money today was impacted by how you grew up. If you were told over and over that there was never enough money or you never had enough money, that might be why you are operating the way you're operating today regarding money. One of the things that Patti recommends is for you to reflect on the thoughts and the ideas that you grew up with about money and asking yourself, is this really true? And then debunking that idea so that you can transform the scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. So she says, changing that subconscious is going to really help you, but it's also going to take time. You can't do that overnight. Patti has a couple of free gifts on her website, pattihandy.com. And one of them is called Minding Her Money. The other one is called 50 Ways to Flourish After Divorce, which I wish I had about 15 years ago. She also leaves us with 2 great tips. Tip number 1 is give yourself some grace if you are not savvy with money. You are on a learning journey, and obviously you're going to make mistakes along the way, but the important thing is for you to learn how to manage your money. And then tip number 2 is to do your due diligence. Do your homework about where you are financially. Obviously, keep track of everything and be mindful about not making any rash decisions, especially if you're going through some kind of emotional situation, such as a divorce or losing a partner. So all of Patti's contact information is going to be on the episode website, and I hope that you take advantage of her free gifts on her website. Again, pattihandy.com. So with that, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Let these stories of self-encouragement and professional development serve as a guide in navigating through corporate America in the most practical and fulfilling way possible. Do not forget to subscribe to the show at nowomanleftbehind.com for more content like this. Leave a rating and share it with your friends because we want to make sure that no woman is left behind. Until I see you next time, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action.